ahead, Sheriff.
All rise.
Thank you, Sheriff. You all may be seated. Good morning, members of the jury. How are you doing? You will recall that we're in the defense's case. Mr. Gill, what says the defense?
Thanks, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defense rests.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Mr. Smythe, will the state have any rebuttal evidence?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Call your first witness, please.
Call Monique Arredondo.
Good morning. You could please raise your right hand before you have a seat. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Yes.
Please have a seat. You can respond to any questions from Mr. Smythe, and perhaps also either Mr. Gill or Mr. Brissett to your left. Sir, you may proceed when you're ready.
Thanks, sir. Please state your name and spell your first name, last name for the record.
Monique Arredondo, MoniqueArredondo.
And how are you currently employed, ma'am?
I work for Edmore Warehouse.
Okay. I want to direct your attention to April the 16th, Easter Sunday last year. Do you remember that day?
I do.
And what were you planning on doing that afternoon with your little sister?
We were taking her to her surprise birthday party.
And how old is she?
Right now she's 14.
Were you driving a car?
I was.
What kind of car was it?
It was a 2016 Nissan Versa.
And who else was in the car?
I had my other sister Ashley. She was in the passenger side, and my niece was in the back seat.
And Ashley's down here with you today?
Yes.
And were you on Cockrell Hill Road in South Dallas?
Yes.
Let me ask you, what were the road conditions like?
They were a bit slippery because it was raining before we had left.
And you specifically remember that this was Easter Sunday?
I do.
Did you get into an automobile accident that day?
I did.
Do you remember about what time it was?
Preferably like afternoon, maybe around 2.
And was that accident at the intersection of Cockrell Hill and Keys in South Dallas?
Yes.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that accident. How'd that happen?
I was coming down the hill and I had already realized that the light was turning yellow, so I had already slowed down. But when I was slowing down, coming down towards the hill, I had already firmly pushed all the way down on my brakes. But the car had slid a little bit. I had no control of that. I wasn't going to turn out of place, so when it went straight, it just it hit the back of the truck.
Why weren't you going to turn out of place? Is that because there was a lot of traffic out there?
There's already other cars that were slowing down and stopping, so I didn't want to.
So you ran into the back of the truck, you did that.
Yes.
Did you do that on purpose?
I did not.
What happened after that?
I came to a stop, put the car in park, and I had checked on my sister to the right, checked on my niece in the back, and I looked in the rear view to check on my other sister. And by the time I was already turning forward, after checking on them, there was already somebody walking towards the car that had out of the truck.
Describe him to the jury.
It was a tall, he was tall, bald, and he had black sunglasses on. That's what I remember seeing.
Okay. And since he had black sunglasses on, you can't identify him, right?
No.
Okay. You said he was bald?
Yes.
All right. And did you notice him doing anything that surprised you?
I did.
What?
He had his gun already approaching the vehicle.
And what happened then?
he walked up to the car and he just asked for, he already had his gun out, he was already pointing at me.
He pointed it at you?
Yeah.
Tell the jury about that.
I was looking forward and I was watching him walk towards me. And when he got right here, when I turned to the side, all I could see is the end of the gun in my face.
Okay.
So,
The gun was in your face?
yeah,
Are you sure about that?
I'm positive. I can't forget a gun in my face.
Did you have a conversation with this person?
I only told him that I was not going to give him any of my information until he got the gun out of my face.
Were you doing anything unusual as far as wrestling around with papers or anything like that?
No, I had both hands on the steering wheel and I was leaning forward. So in case he were to fire, I knew I was going to get hit and not my sister.
Did you do anything that would have led anybody to believe that you were going to try to hit him with your car?
No, I did not.
You were just parked there.
I was parked.
Okay. What happened after that?
He continually asked for my information. That's when I kept saying that I wasn't going to give anything until the gun was out of my face. And after maybe like a minute or two is when he finally just walked away.
Did the police eventually come?
They did.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that.
They came and they just, from what I can remember, is they asked us to go to the gas station that was across the street so they can figure out what was going on. So they drove us, we all drove over there and they were talking. My parents had already came because I told them what happened. All the cops were together talking to the officer, to the person who I didn't know at the time was an officer. They were all talking to him. My dad was trying to figure out what happened and why somebody pulled a gun out on me. And the only thing I can remember from then is someone walked up to me and gave me a piece of paper and said, here, be careful driving next time. I didn't even get a ticket for not having a license, for driving without a license. I didn't get nothing like that. All I got was a piece of paper saying, like, take care of it and be careful next time. And then I walked away.
Did the person that came up to your car tell you that he was a police officer?
No, he did not.
Did he display a police badge to you?
No.
Okay. Now, were you in fear for your life when he was pointing that gun at you?
Yeah, it was the first time that I ever had a gun in my face.
Pretty scary moment?
Yeah, I thought I was going to die in front of my sister and my niece. It's not a pretty picture.
You indicated that you leaned forward to try and protect your sister. Can you tell the jury a little bit more about that?
There wasn't much space from, like, I guess you could say the angle from where the gun would shoot to where my sister was. But I just leaned forward to cover that space and I grabbed onto the steering wheel. So in case he did, because I didn't know what he was going to do, then I knew for sure it was going to hit me and not. It wasn't going to hit her at all.
Sometime after April the 29th, 2017, did you find out that the defendant, Roy Oliver, was involved in a shooting over at Palm Springs?
I did. My parents told me.
Okay. And what did you do as a result of that?
At the moment, I mean, I didn't know what to do until we realized that hey, that was the same guy that just did that. And then that's when multiple people came. They came asking me questions if I wanted to help.
Okay. And eventually, did I go out to your place with Buddy Evans to talk to you about this incident?
You did.
Okay. Do you know now that the defendant had told the Dallas police officers at the scene that he was a Bald Springs police officer?
I mean, now I do.
All right, and nothing happened on this until I got involved, but do you think that the reason that nothing happened out there was because Mr. Oliver said he was a Bald Springs police officer?
I do.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about your kids in the back being hysterical and scared. Can you tell them about that?
My younger sister that was behind me, when she seen it happen, when she seen him approaching with the gun, she started yelling and crying, and she went down to the floor behind my other sister, the passenger seat. She just laid down crying. My niece, she really didn't know what was going on. I wasn't trying to let her see it, so I was pretty set, I just didn't want her to see nothing. But my little sister, she's seen everything.
And you said she was 14 now, so I guess she was 13 at the time?
Yes.
That's what it's judge.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Arredondo, my name is Miles Brissett. I'm going to ask you a few questions this morning to help you better understand what took place on Easter Sunday that last year, okay?
Okay.
If you don't understand anything, just ask me to repeat it and I'll rephrase it, okay? Y'all are coming down that hill and it's your sister's, it's a new car back there. It was a 2016, was it not?
Yes.
Did the, if I use the phrase anti-lock brakes, do you think what did you feel when you were hitting the brakes? Did it feel like they just weren't stopping?
Yeah, I felt like the tires were stopping, but it was still sliding.
Your sister's car went through underneath this pickup truck, right? A little bit?
Yeah.
And I think you told Mr. Snipes on one of his visits to your house it was a black pickup truck. Do you recall that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
And if Officer Oliver's Toyota pickup truck was silver, does that make a difference to you at this point?
It wasn't silver.
It wasn't silver?
No.
When your father gets there at some point, does he not?
He did.
How'd your father get, it's a Shell gas station.
Mm-hmm.
You recall that?
Yes.
Your father gets there and he's a little excited when he gets there, right?
He's not excited.
Well, he's upset.
Okay, he's upset.
Would you agree with that?
I would. Someone just put a gun out on me. And his daughter's in the back seat.
Yes, ma'am, and he's upset because of what you told him to come out there. Do you remember?
I do.
And Dad's doing what Dad's supposed to do. You recall that?
I do.
So when your dad walks up on the body-worn camera that captured it, and your dad says that, I don't care if he's a cop, I want him to go to jail, I have a question is how your dad knew he was a cop prior to getting there if you just told this jury that you didn't know he was a Balch Springs police officer when he was out there.
If he was speaking to other people that was already there and they had already told him he was a cop, then I have no control of that. I didn't get on the phone and call him and tell him, hey, there's a cop who just put a gun out on me. I specifically stated I didn't know he was a cop. He didn't walk up to my car showing his badge. He didn't state I'm Officer Oliver. He didn't do none of that. I called my dad. I said, hey, we just got in a wreck. He came down there.
Do you recall when your dad walked up when he was excited and upset that when the officer from Dallas Police, and you would agree the officer from Dallas Police was respectful to you, would you not?
I would.
Okay. And he was respectful to your father?
Again, I wasn't by my father the whole time, so I can't tell you what was going on with my dad.
Sure, understandable, but in your presence he was respectful to you, would you agree?
To me, yes.
And to your father when he was in your presence?
I'm not going to answer that because I don't know.
You don't know?
Like I stated, I wasn't next to my father the whole time.
And
I was over here, my dad could have been over here doing his own thing, which he was.
Ma'am, my question is, when your father was next to you, was the officer respectful to him as well?
Yeah.
And he was respectful to all of y'all at the end when the officer gave you, they carry a little pad in their vest pocket or above their bulletproof vest where they write stuff down, their little whip-out pad. Do you recall the officer from Dallas giving you a piece of paper that had Sergeant Snow's name on it, the daytime phone number for the Balch Springs Police Department, how to reach Sergeant Snow, and even the physical address of Balch Springs if you wanted to go in person? Do you recall that?
I recall him giving me a paper.
He gave you a couple papers that day, is that correct?
I recall him giving me one paper.
Do you recall signing a second piece of paper that day?
I don't.
Have you had a chance in your preparation for your testimony today to look at the body-worn videos from the Dallas police officer?
No.
The DA's office never showed you the officer's videos of you out at the scene?
Recently, like right now, no.
Well, have you ever seen them? Because most civilians usually don't get to see the camera footage. Have you ever seen the footage?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall, you testified on direct that you didn't get a citation, but do you recall when the officer walks up with his ticket pad on his aluminum fold-out clipboard and has you sign and says that you're not pleading guilty here, you're not admitting guilt, we're just giving you a ticket because you didn't have a Texas driver's license?
I don't recall that.
So if you were given a ticket, you haven't taken care of it then? Is that no?
No, I haven't.
Was there any medical condition or anything that your sister, who's the owner of the car, does she have a driver's license?
No, she don't.
So there were no adults driving in the car that had driver's license?
No, there wasn't.
When your dad was in his excited state when he walked up, do you recall that your dad was telling the Dallas officer that he understood that when cops get out of a vehicle, they go into full cop mode to protect their lives?
You're saying that's what my dad said?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't recall that.
And your dad would have been a gentleman wearing a nice Texas Rangers t-shirt that day?
I'm assuming.
Okay. Do you recall where the stick shift is? The gear shifter for your sister's vehicle, is it on the steering wheel itself, or is it down in a center console, or is it a push button on the dash? What is it, if you recall?
It's down in the center.
Did you have any bags or anything like that where you would have had your ID next to you or around you?
My ID is in my wallet.
And I understand after the impact where your vehicle underrode Officer Oliver's silver Toyota Tundra, things might get disheveled on impact from the velocity of the impact. Did your wallet or anything get moved around, or was it on you?
My wallet's in my pocket, which I was sitting on, so there's no chance for it to move.
Okay, fair enough. And you said eventually, I think on direct, that at some point Officer Oliver just walked away. Is that yes?
Yes.
Did he walk away with anything, or did he just walk away?
He walked away with what he had on him.
Okay. Can you help me then where I've looked at your body worn that's out there that captures this, and you tell the officers that when he walked away, he had your ID card at that point and insurance. So if he just stood there on your direct testimony for 2 minutes and didn't do anything else, how did he end up with your ID card and the insurance card?
I gave who my ID and my insurance card?
Well, that's the question I'm trying to figure out. How did the individual that came up to your car?
What individual are we talking about?
Do you recall having a wreck on Easter Sunday of last year?
I do.
Do you recall on your direct examination that you told First Assistant Snipes that there was an individual that came up to your car that was bald and was wearing sunglasses?
I do.
Do you recall in your direct testimony that you said that individual had unholstered a weapon and had it at a position, you're saying it was pointed directly at you? And was the gun pointed directly at you for the entire 2 minutes you say that this individual was standing there?
Yes.
Was it a fixed arm like this, 2 arms up, or was it 1 arm? How was it?
It was 2 fixed.
2 fixed. And during that 2 minutes that he was standing there, when he went back, did he go back to his vehicle then?
Yes.
The black truck that you call it?
He went back to the vehicle that was in front of us, yes.
The vehicle that your vehicle was stuck underneath at that point, correct?
That I had hit from the back, yes.
Okay. At some point in time, did you give this individual your driver's license or your ID, Texas issued ID card?
What individual?
The individual that had been at your car that you say was pointing the gun at your head, ma'am.
Roy Oliver? No.
You never gave Mr. Oliver the driver's license?
I don't have a driver's license.
Did you ever give him your state issued ID card?
Not that I recall.
Well, your recollection's been a little foggy on some of this because you've given many a different statement about this, correct?
I I haven't given many different statements.
Well, how many different statements do you think you've given on this?
I don't know, I've only been up here twice. This is my second time.
Do you recall writing out statements?
I could have.
Do you recall testifying downstairs in this building before the grand jury of Dallas County?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not going to say yes, I'm not going to say no. Giving the honest answer.
Okay. Have you had any medical issues or anything that would cause any memory lapse between Easter of last year and today?
I've had my own personal issues that have gone on. But like I said, I'm going to answer I'm going to give you the truth. I'm not going to lie and say, yes, I remember when I really don't.
And I thank you for that. Has the state, in preparation of your testimony today before this jury on this serious matter, have they given you a copy of any of your grand jury testimony to go over to review in preparation for your testimony today before this jury?
Yes.
Do you recall then going to the grand jury?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall meeting with First Assistant Snipes and one of his police officers, one of his detectives, an investigator, came out with him? You'd expect them to come out and visit with you. And they did, didn't they?
They did.
And you gave a statement to them as well. You recall that?
Yes.
So back at the scene, do you recall the Dallas police officer that was giving you these pieces of paper, that he gave you some verbal information that he was going back to his station and writing a report? You recall that?
Yes.
Do you recall that the officer said that, and told you and your dad and your family that was there that by about Thursday the report would be ready to pick up so you could take a report with you when you went over to Balch Springs to chat with them?
I remember them saying that they would file the report.
They were going to generate an incident at DPD. And Dallas brought some supervisors out. There just wasn't one officer. You had probably 3 or 4 patrol cars out there. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And this individual, Roy Oliver, as you call him, Roy wasn't by himself that day, was he?
No.
And Roy had his little boy Tab with him. You recall that?
I don't know who he had with him.
All right. Well, do you remember at different points seeing the individual you're saying is Roy Oliver have a little boy in his hands?
I don't recall that, but I know he wasn't by himself.
Okay.
I know there was people in his truck.
All right. And his wife Ingrid that's sitting back here behind me a couple rows, you recall that Ingrid was there next to him and as part of the exchange of information and talking to folks?
Again, I knew there was people in his truck. I wasn't focused on them and trying to remember who's standing next to him.
Sure, certain. Understandable. Dallas Fire Rescue came out after Ingrid called 911. You know they arrived and you asked them to check out the back seat of your car, make sure they're okay. You recall that?
Yes.
Have you subsequently talked to the insurance company of your sister and given any statements to them?
No.
Do any telephone interviews like that or anything?
I did interviews like with the news. That's about it.
Okay. And you recall a couple weeks ago when you were here for a hearing and you were asked that very question and you said you hadn't given any interviews. You recall that?
I said I spoke to people. People came out to me.
And you know that your sister's insurance company had to get a new car seat for Roy's vehicle because the tab had been in the car seat and they replaced those on violent impacts. Did y'all replace anything? Was it sufficient enough to replace the car seats in your car?
Yeah, we had to replace the whole front end of the car.
Okay. And the insurance company took care of that and the medical bills for Ingrid for her injuries and stuff like that as well. So the insurance took care of all that, correct?
I don't know. My dad's in charge of that.
Did you got to go see a doctor for anything that you had or anything like that?
No, I wasn't going to go see a doctor. They wanted me to, but I wasn't going to. The car was messed up, not me.
Did anybody else in the vehicle have to go see a doctor from y'all?
No, they didn't.
And I believe, if I understand correctly, your father reached out to Balch Springs after he saw Officer Oliver's picture on TV a couple weeks later. You recall that?
I don't. Like I said, my dad's his own person. I can't control what he does.
Did you ever go make an internal affairs complaint to Balch Springs that if this is Easter Sunday, and the Dallas police officer who was being respectful to you and nice to you and told you report would be ready by Thursday, did you pick it up and go see Balch Springs Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
No, my dad called before we actually would have went out there, and there was no report filed anywhere. He called Balch Springs and Dallas. There was no report filed of the incident that occurred.
Okay, break that down. There's a couple of things there. First thing, I asked you a minute ago if your dad talked to Balch Springs, and you told me no. Now you have that information.
You asked a different question right now. You said, did I go pick up, or did I go see the report? That's a whole different question.
No.
I can tell you I didn't, because I knew my dad called. So, hey, Mija, you don't need to, because there's no report filed.
So you're saying Dallas lied to you and didn't file a police report?
I guess apparently they did if there was no report. Because when he called and gave them the information, they said there was nothing on file.
I understand. In your preparation for your testimony today, did the DA's office ever show you the Dallas police incident report that they had to turn over to the defense in this case, us, for discovery purposes in order to comply with their ethical duties?
I don't understand your question.
There's a police report from the city of Dallas where it has your name on it and Roy Oliver's name on it for this accident. They wrote 2 incidents, one for the accident and one for the weapon draw that you talked about. In your preparation for your testimony, did you ever look at either one of those police reports?
I don't recall.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
May this witness be finally excused.
Say yes, sir.
Yes, Your Honor.
You may stand down. You're excused from any further service in this matter, but please don't express your testimony until after the trial is completed. Call your name, please.
Oh, Ashley Cuevas.
Stand up and stretch. Good morning. If you would please come to the front of the courtroom. There's some steps there. Watch your step. If you could please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
That's right.
Please have a seat. Respond to any questions from Mr. Snipes and perhaps also Mr. Brissett, the purple tie chewing on his glasses over there on the table. Mr. Snipes, this is your witness.
TCU primary.
Sorry about that. PCU Prime.
Please state your full name, spell your first name and last name for the record.
Yes, Ashley Cuevas, ASHLEYCUEVAS.
And how are you currently employed, ma'am?
I'm a dispatcher for a logistics company.
And that lady that just passed you by, that was just on the witness stand, what is your relationship to her?
She's my older sister.
I want to direct your attention, cut to the chase here, to April 16, 2017, Easter Sunday. Were you and your sister taking your 13-year-old sister at the time to a party that day?
Yes, we were celebrating Easter and her 13th birthday all together
And you were where in the car?
in the passenger seat
Up front?
up front.
And who was in the back?
Behind me was my 3-year-old daughter and my 13-year-old sister.
Okay. 13-year-old sister was behind the driver.
Yes, correct, behind Monique.
Whose car was that?
It's my car.
Why weren't you driving?
My sister, she drives it.
Go interchangeably.
Yes.
Okay. Did you guys have a wreck at the intersection of Cockrell Hill and Keys in South Dallas?
Yes, sir.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about that.
It was not for sure on the time. The roads, the weather that morning was slippery. It was due to the rain. We were going down, there's a hill off the Parker Hill right before you get to the light. The light was red. My sister did push the brakes as we were coming up to the red light. And that's when we impacted on behind of the truck that was right in front of us.
Did you get the impression that Monique did that on purpose, ma'am?
No, she did not.
Okay. So you have this fender bender. Did something unusual happen after that?
Yes, as soon as the car impacted, I could hear my 13-year-old sister in the back. She was already crying. My daughter behind me, she was only 3, so she had no idea what had just happened. But she was alerted. She didn't know what was going on. And Our windows were down that day. We don't have any tinted windows, so you could see all of us in the vehicle. You can see it's all women in the car. And as soon as we impacted, I see a man come out of his truck quickly and approached our vehicle with a gun pointed towards my sister.
You sure about that?
I'm very positive about that.
Can you describe this man to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
I know he had a cap on and dark sunglasses. And like a dark, I'm not for sure on the color of his shirt, but I know it was dark.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about how this man pointed the gun at your sister.
He pointed the gun straight at my sister. He did not ask if we were okay or, is anybody hurt. We didn't know who he was. It was just some stranger that we had just hit. And he was demanding my sister's license and all her information as the gun was pointing at her head.
Were you scared?
I was terrified.
In fear for your life?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because, we had a gun pointed at us. It could have, my sister could have been shot, I could have been shot, and to be thinking that, wondering that in my head at that moment, that's something I would never want to encounter. And I was scared, I was terrified, because we could have been shot right in front of my little sister and my daughter.
This person that came up to your car, did he tell you he was a police officer?
No, sir.
Okay. He started ordering you guys around, though?
He was demanding my sister's information.
Okay. And he was in civilian clothes?
Yes, he was in the clothes.
Wasn't in a police uniform, was he?
No, sir.
You sure about that gun you pointed right at Monique's head?
I'm sure, I'm positive. That's something I would never forget, still to this day.
Pass with you.
Cross-examination.
Ma'am, good morning. My name is Miles Brissett. I'm going to ask you just a few questions to help better understand what you just told this jury, okay?
Yes.
If you don't understand anything, just ask me and I'll try to rephrase it, okay?
Okay.
You mentioned to the jury that it was wet out that morning. Was this accident in the morning or in the afternoon or late afternoon, best you recall?
I would say I know it was past 12 the afternoon.
If the police report had it in the 4 o'clock hour, mid 4 o'clock, so at 4:27, would that sound about right?
Yes, because we knew she had to be there between 3 and 4. And we were running late that day.
Why were y'all running late?
Because we weren't all ready at the same time.
What color was this individual's truck that your sister slid into?
I believe it was some type of navy blue. I know it was dark.
And if I understand what you just told Mr. Snipes, when this individual got out of the truck, he had a hat on. Mm-hmm. Is that yes?
Correct.
Do you have sunglasses on?
Yes.
And tell the members of the jury exactly when you saw this officer's gun.
As soon as he got out of the vehicle. As soon as he got out of his vehicle.
Okay. How was he holding it?
He was holding it, I believe it was with the right hand, from what I recall.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And you had a new vehicle back then.
It was a 2016 black Nissan Versa.
And Nissan Versa, that's a 4-door sedan.
It's a 4-door, yes, sir.
And it suffered some front-end damage from hitting Officer Oliver's rear bumper, and the bumper had a draw-type hitch, and it had a receiver in it with a trailer hitch on. You guys hit the trailer hitch. It went underneath it and bumped up the bumper into the tailgate. You guys were underneath Officer Oliver's vehicle for a little bit. You recall that?
I never did, whenever we impacted him, I never got out of the vehicle because there was still traffic going through. So I didn't see the front of the car until we pulled over to the Shell gas station.
Understandable completely. When you got over there, you probably never walked over based on what you just told the jury, but did you ever get close enough to see where your vehicle would have lined up to his vehicle?
No, sir.
In his vehicle, whether it's navy or another color, it sits up. It's a decent size elevation. It's a factory Toyota Tundra. It's a pickup truck. Nothing strange about it, was there?
No, sir.
And this officer gets out, and if I understand your testimony, I don't want to put words in your mouth. As soon as he gets out, you see that the weapon's in his hand, correct?
Correct.
And you're seated in the front right seat of that vehicle, correct?
Correct.
A vehicle that's just underrode the back of a Tundra. Was his tailgate down, or was the left side of the bed of the truck removed where you could see right over to that? Because Officer Oliver's pickup truck's a dual cab pickup truck. You recall that?
Do I recall, what was the question?
Your testimony just a minute ago was that if this is the vehicle and the vehicle's facing this way, if the driver's compartment's here on the Tundra, it's a 4-door, so there's 2 doors. You just told the jury that as soon as he got out of the vehicle, you saw the weapon displayed. The Tundra has a bed on the back of it. You'd agree with that?
Correct.
And it's got a tailgate to it. You'd agree with that?
Correct.
And you have just underrode the vehicle where your vehicle stuck up underneath the pickup truck, and you have a vantage point from your lower riding vehicle on the front right passenger side to see back up here to where the driver's side door is, that this individual that you say had the hat on that day and glasses was pointing a weapon at you, and you've indicated like this. So did he have it up over his tailgate walking back in his truck?
I don't recall how he had it positioned as soon as he got out of the vehicle, but as soon as he got out of the vehicle and approached that front door where the driver was at, the gun was visible.
Okay. And it was visible right here because your sister was fidgeting around inside the car when he was walking up.
It was pointed at her.
So your story is not that it was visible as soon as he got out of the vehicle. It's now only visible once he clears the back of his vehicle and gets up to the window. Is that correct?
I seen the gun as soon as he got out of his vehicle, approached because he approached really quickly. It wasn't he wasn't walking slow. As soon as he got out of his vehicle, as soon as he stepped out of his truck, he approached our vehicle very quickly because he was angry. He was raging.
How was he raging?
There's been times where someone, hits the front of our car, but never in my life have I seen anybody jump out of a truck that quickly, angry. He looked really angry just for us hitting the back of his truck.
What facial expressions made him look angry if he has a hat on that you say and glasses on? You can't see his eyes.
The way he was talking, yelling.
What was he yelling at you?
He was yelling, he wasn't yelling at me, but I could hear him from my left ear when he was demanding my sister's information with the gun pointed at her.
And how long did he keep the gun pointed at your sister?
I'd say, I don't know, I wasn't keeping count, but he was demanding, I'd say, for about a minute or 2 with the gun pointed at her.
And how was it the entire time he was pointing? You keep using your left hand to demonstrate, but you're using your left hand physically, but you're saying it was his right hand.
Correct.
So which is it?
It's the right.
And you're saying he never told you he was a Balch Springs police officer?
No, sir.
Between you or your sister, who called your dad to have him come over to the Shell station?
It was the 13-year-old, my daughter, the 13-year-old sister.
Would it surprise you that, having watched the videos from the scene from the police officer's body cams, that when your dad walks up, he already knows that there was a police officer involved in this and he wanted his quote-unquote ass arrested? He didn't care if he was a cop. So he already knew that he was a cop when he got there. So somebody in the car knew that this individual that had walked up, as you say, with a hat on and glasses, was a police officer. You recall your dad when he walked up? Your dad was wearing a really neat Texas Rangers t-shirt that day in the video. He walks up and says he wants him arrested. That's what dads are supposed to do. They protect their daughters, right?
Correct.
All right, so your dad got the information before he got there, correct?
I believe so, yes, because he knew what had happened because my 13-year-old sister had called him.
And this is your 13-year-old sister that was so emotional during different parts, right?
She was, correct.
And your 13-year-old sister, was she the one crying upon impact that you testified on direct about? You told Mr. Snipes that somebody was in the backseat crying. I forget.
Yes, my 13-year-old sister.
Okay, so she's crying before anybody gets out of the pickup truck and comes back to the vehicle.
Correct.
Okay, so she's not crying at that point because anybody's pointing a gun in her face.
She was crying because of what happened.
Okay, because of the accident.
Because of the accident. She was scared. It was her first accident on her birthday and on Easter.
I understand. I understand completely. Here's where I'm going with that. Later on, through this process from Easter Sunday of last year to today, there's been statements either written or talked about to where all the crying that your sister has on her birthday, and it's tragic that she's messed up her birthday like this. I understand what it is to have accidents that ruin good days. But the claim of all her tears were because of Mr. Oliver and not because of the accident itself. And I'm just trying to understand that a little bit better. So she was crying before Mr. Oliver, or the driver of this vehicle, ever got out.
Correct. She was crying as soon as we impacted his truck.
And at some point she was able to gather herself enough to call your father and give your father a good relay of what's going on so your dad could come out and be dad, because that's what dads are supposed to do, right?
Correct.
So it wouldn't surprise you that if she got herself together and was able to tell your dad everything, so your dad walks up and already knows that there's a police officer involved, he didn't care, he wanted him arrested. You'd agree with that, right?
Correct.
Okay. And Dallas police brought some supervisors out there. You remember that?
I remember. Mhm.
And they spoke to your dad. Were the Dallas police officers respectful to you?
Were they respectful to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, they were.
And if I understand what took place, because we weren't there, that's why we're asking these questions, and I apologize for even having to ask them. Mr. Oliver's wife, Ingrid, who's here, she called Dallas Fire Rescue, because you remember the paramedics coming out of the firemen.
I do remember, yes, because they asked if I was okay, if my daughter was hurt. They asked my daughter, you know, she didn't know what had happened. She can't say, like, oh, my neck is hurting, or...
Sure.
But she did, you know, tell them that she was okay.
They did what they're supposed to do as firemen and paramedics, and they made sure all the kiddos were okay. You'd agree with that?
I agree.
Did any of the kiddos or anybody in your car need medical treatment afterwards?
No, sir.
And you had insurance on your vehicle, because that's what you got to do in Texas.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the insurance took care of it, right?
They did. They took care of the damages.
Took care of the medical bills for Officer Oliver's family. You didn't lose any money out of pocket for any of that, did you? Unless your deductible.
Right. I believe so. Mm-hmm.
Did you have an occasion to be around when the officer is giving your sister a piece of paper that had Officer Oliver's name, badge number, his immediate supervisor, Sergeant Snow, who he spoke to from the scene?
No, that I wasn't there standing with my sister and the officer.
Do you recall what you were wearing that day?
I do. I believe it was jean shorts and a white blouse.
And as part of this, do you recall your father being there? Your father stayed by your sister pretty much.
He did, yes. I was more, because my daughter was still in the car. I didn't take her out of the car, so I was more of, you know, being with her and being, you know, making sure she was okay.
You were the calming influence on the other ones. You had to take care of that. And
Yes. My sister was more, Monique was standing with the officers more and speaking with them along with my dad. And
certainly. Do you remember when your sister got a ticket for not having a driver's license?
I know she did. I don't remember the time or who gave it to her.
When y'all left and went home that night, did y'all ever make it to the birthday party?
We did. Monique never went. She wasn't in the mood anymore. She couldn't have fun. She couldn't be with the family. My 13-year-old sister, she wasn't even herself at the birthday party.
Okay. And that's understandable given that the accident and everything else, okay? Did y'all go to Balch Springs the next day and talk to them and tell Balch Springs what took place?
Never.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Pass the witness.
May this witness be finally excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. Many of you stand down. Please be careful on your way down. Excuse from any further service in this matter. Please don't discuss the testimony of the witness. What says the state?
Our last witness is Leighton, the attorney judge.
Can we approach the bench, Judge?
Sure. Sir, if you would please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to hear will be the truth.
Yes.
Please have a seat. Respond to questions from Mr. Snipes. Whose witness will this be for the defense?
We're not sure yet, Judge. We'll see what they
Either
say.
Mr. Bissett or Mr. Gill, Mr. Lane. Mr. Snipes, you may proceed when ready.
Please state your full name, spell your first name, spell your last name.
Michael Leighton D'Antoni, MICHAEL LEIGHTON D'Aponton.
going forward, sir?
I'm an assistant district attorney here in Dallas County.
What's your specific assignment?
I am currently a felony chief in charge of cold cases, specifically cold cases involving sexual assault-related homicides, and spearhead the Dallas County's efforts to get rid of the backlog of the untested rape kits.
I direct your attention to October the 30th, 2013, and I'll ask you to tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you did at that time.
At that time, I had just been hired by the district attorney's office. My family and I had moved here from San Diego, California. In San Diego, I had spent my career as a public defender. So when I came and was hired by Dallas County to be a prosecutor, I was sent down to misdemeanor for about 6 months to kind of learn Texas-related laws and learn how to be a prosecutor. I was assigned to criminal court number 3, and primarily there's 10 or 12 misdemeanor courts here in Dallas, and all but 2 of them do nothing but DWI trials pretty much every day. So at that time, basically just trying multiple DWI trials a week.
And just so the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would be familiar with how this works, typically those cases are tried with 2 DAs, one that picks the jury, one that leads the case. Is that right?
That is correct. At the time, there were 3 assigned prosecutors to that court, and we would rotate. Sometimes, we would be able to call the lead, the person who's going to be asking questions during the trial, doing the arguments, whereas the second person who would be sitting at the table would be responsible for picking the jury. May participate a little bit in the trial, but their main function is picking the jury.
So you were sitting beside the lead prosecutor, who I believe was Chris Johnson. Is that right?
Correct. And it was Chris Johnson's case that I was picking the jury.
Chris Johnson no longer with the office.
That's correct.
Okay. And was one of your witnesses, actually the primary witness, a man named Roy Oliver, the defendant in this case?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And if you recognize him here in court, would you point to him, please, and identify an article of clothing?
Sure. It's the gentleman standing at the defense table. He's wearing a suit with a blue tie.
The record to reflect the witnesses correctly identify the defendant, Your Honor.
The record shall so reflect.
Okay. And will you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you saw with this defendant as far as his attitude and behavior in court?
Well, I didn't actually see the defendant until after I picked the jury. Typically what will happen is we will get in touch with our officers a day or 2 before the trial. We're certainly aware.
Judge, we object. This is non-responsive.
It's the same.
When was the first time you saw Mr. Oliver?
It was after I picked the jury that night.
And was that unusual that you didn't see him until then?
Yes.
Okay, why would that be?
Typically, we're in touch with our officers. We're trained, and it's important for us to meet all of our witnesses prior to a trial starting. We try and actually meet with them face-to-face. We'll have them come down here. Sometimes we go to the stations, depending on whose schedule is doing what. But Chris, my co-counsel for that trial, had told me that the defendant had been non-responsive to his communications, trying to set up time to meet or at least talk to him.
Judge, we're going to object to what he might have been told by someone else. Everybody knows that's hearsay.
Any reply?
Yes, sir. Not for the truth of the matter asserted, Judge.
Objection.
For further action.
The objection is overruled.
All right. So you had kind of an understanding of what might be facing you guys.
Yeah, and that morning we had to decide whether or not to even start jury selection because we didn't know if we were going to have any witnesses. And typically we wouldn't start. Chris and I at that time, Chris was pretty experienced. He had been trying DWI cases for a while. I had tried lots of cases in California, so I thought, we could handle it if they came in on the fly. And so we decided to go ahead.
And will you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury kind of what the demeanor of the defendant was while he was testifying?
It was hostile. And it was quite hostile.
What do you mean? How was it hostile?
Well, after we picked the jury, we had a break for lunch. And at that time, we were able to meet with the defendant as well as Officer Shambly, who was the other officer involved in that case. And the defendant told us he didn't want to be there. He had just worked a night shift and, essentially didn't want to cooperate with us and wanted to leave.
Anything unusual about a police officer having to testify after having to work the night shift before?
No, in fact, as I said earlier, there's 10 courts in this building that do nothing but churn out DWI trials all day, every day. And by their nature, DWI trials, the main witness is always going to be a night patrol officer. Most DWI arrests occur at night. These are officers who are working the night shift. So we're quite experienced with officers having to come off of a shift in the morning and have to testify that day, and maybe even have to go back to work that night. They're trained for it. It's expected. It happens every day in this courthouse.
And did there come a time when the defendant was asked a question and his response was a vulgarity in front of the jury?
There was.
Tell them.
There was a line of questioning where Mr. Johnson was asking the standard questions that any patrol officer, especially DWI patrol officer, would be able to answer. The defendant was not able to give those answers. When Mr. Johnson tried to lead him a little bit into the answer, there was an objection from the defense counsel, and then the defendant said to the jury, "I don't understand the fucking question."
And that's exactly what he said.
That's exactly what he said.
He didn't say effing or anything like that.
That's what he said.
Now, you've tried a lot of cases over the years.
Correct.
You ever seen a police officer use that kind of language in front of a jury?
I've never seen anybody use that kind of language in front of a jury.
And then, was there some difficulty after his examination had concluded on direct on getting him to come back to the courtroom?
Yes, so we took a break. It was at the end, I can't remember if it was exactly at the end of direct or certainly towards the end, but the jury was dismissed to take up a legal issue.
John, this is well beyond any proffer that the state made earlier to you.
The objection is done. It's overruled. I'll give you a running objection. Go ahead, Mr. Snipes.
Okay. Tell them about the problems you had getting him to come back.
The defendant walked out, the courtroom's just like this, walked out those double doors, and proceeded to pick up, I think, something he had left in our workroom, which is a small room that's inside, that's right outside those doors where there are 3 prosecutors who are stationed. And then went out through the second set of double doors and was leaving. I stopped him and I told him, "You can't leave. You're under a court order. You've not been released by the judge. You need to come back." He said he wasn't coming back. He says he didn't care. I told him again, it's a court order. You've not been excused. The defense has a right to cross-examine you. And he just ignored me and walked out.
But to be fair to the defendant, ultimately he did come back.
That's true. I went then and spoke with Officer Chambly, who was kind of in shock about what had just happened. I know he attempted to contact the defendant, and I believe he contacted the defendant's supervisors. And then ultimately were able to connect with the defendant, and then at a later time did return.
Did you ever tell, or did anybody in your hearing ever tell the defendant that you didn't care about his safety and the only thing that you cared about was getting a conviction in the case?
I never had any conversation with the defendant about his safety, nor did he ever express any concern about his safety. He did say that he was upset that he had just worked, a night shift and was getting ready to go back on. But again, as I explained to him and as I explained this earlier, these officers are trained for that. That's part of their job. They know that's what's expected of them when they're working night patrols. So it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. And certainly nobody would be putting him in a safety risk.
Pass witness, Judge.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go ahead, Mr. Gill.
Mr. D'Antoni?
Correct.
Okay, my name is Bob Gill. I don't believe we've ever met before.
No, Mr. Gill, we did not.
And did you say you're still with the Dallas County Criminal District Attorney's Office?
I am.
Okay. So you work for Mr. Snipes,
I do.
and you work for Ms. Johnson,
I do.
and at that time, you worked for Mr. Hermes, is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Hermes was your supervisor.
He was the deputy chief of misdemeanor, and Rebecca Dodds was the chief.
Okay. Does that mean he was or was not your supervisor?
He was supervisor, yes.
Your supervisor?
I believe yes. The deputy chief split the courts, and I do believe I was under his side of the courts at that time.
So the answer is yes?
Yes.
And so now, how long have you been with the Dallas County Criminal District Attorney's Office?
A little over 5 years.
And since the time of this incident, have you been promoted?
Since the incident in October 2013?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
How many times?
Well, at that time, I was considered a misdemeanor 2, now I'm a felony chief.
Okay, so is that one promotion or is that several promotions?
It's multiple promotions.
So if the question were how many times you've been promoted since then, the answer would be? And are there further promotions that might be available to you above felony chief?
Potentially.
And your court partner was a guy by the name of Chris Johnson that day?
That's correct.
And you said Mr. Johnson has left the Dallas County Criminal District Attorney's Office?
He is.
And where has he gone?
He has gone to a civil firm making lots of money.
Here in Dallas?
Yes.
So I guess he's pretty easy to find if someone would want to find him, right?
Sure.
And he was the prosecutor on the case?
He was the lead prosecutor, that's correct.
So he probably would have had more contact with Mr. Oliver than you would have had. Is that
I would
right?
say yes. I mean, I know he attempted to contact him repeatedly before the trial started. In terms of when the defendant was here.
If the question was, would he have probably had more contact with Mr. Oliver than you, what would the answer be?
It's possible.
Would it also be possible that he and Mr. Oliver had conversations about which you were not aware?
Possible.
So if Mr. Oliver had a conversation with somebody who had told him that we don't care if you had to work the night shift, that could have been Mr. Johnson, is that right?
I'd be shocked if Chris Johnson said that.
Well, if the question was if it could have been him, what would your answer be?
I wouldn't believe it.
And you said also that Mr. Oliver had left for a period of time and came back, is that right?
That's right.
And Mr. Oliver turned out had gone outside for a smoke, isn't that right?
I believe he did state, or it was either he or Officer Chamberlain said that he's out having a cigarette and he is going to return.
Did y'all win your case?
You know what? I think we did, but I don't remember for sure. Back in those days, we were trying DWI trials, multiple times a week. They all, besides the incident that happened with your client, the verdicts all run together.
You said that Mr. Oliver, you had some difficulty getting a hold of him to start with, or you or Mr. Johnson had?
Correct.
Was it your expectation that the city of Ball Springs was going to take him off his patrol beat in order to return your calls or come to court?
Well, if he was working a night shift, he wouldn't be on duty.
The question was, did you expect that the city of Ball Springs was going to take him off of his shift to come to court? What would your answer be?
We expect officers to return our calls.
You expect him to show up, and you expect the city to take them off their patrol beat to have them in court on time?
No, we just expect them to return our calls.
What was the court order that required Mr. Oliver to be in court?
He had been sworn as a witness.
So he had not received a subpoena prior to trial, had he?
He had received a subpoena through the court notify system we use here in Dallas County.
I'm sorry?
He had received a subpoena via the court notify system that we use here in Dallas County.
Did someone swear out a subpoena for him?
I don't know if somebody specifically swore out a subpoena for him. At least I wasn't there when that occurred. But he certainly was subpoenaed through the Dallas County.
You weren't there, you don't know what procedures anybody had gone through to get him here, but you know he had a subpoena.
No, I'm telling you the procedures that went through. It was in court notify. We confirmed it then, and I confirmed it again this morning,
And what was the verdict?
that he had been subpoenaed
What was the verdict?
in the case.
Yeah.
I already answered that. I don't remember. I think it was a guilty, but I couldn't be sure about that.
Who passed the witness?
Very briefly, Judge. You work for my boss, Judge Johnson.
I did.
And me.
Correct.
And he he was your supervisor back then, right?
That's correct.
Anything about that make you lie to these ladies and gentlemen?
Absolutely not.
That's all I got, Judge.
We don't have anything further.
Okay, very good. May as soon as we finally speak.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Sir, you may stand down. Thank you for your testimony. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else until after the trial.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen, we rest our case in law.
Mr. Reset.
The defense closes, Your Honor.
Very good. Members of the jury, you have now heard all of the evidence that you're going to hear in this case. The next phase of the trial will be for us. We're going to work on the jury charge in each of these cases. That's going to take a little bit of time. And I think the best use of our time would be to send you home now and start bright and early on Monday morning. We'll start at 10 o'clock. Between now and then, please do not do any independent research. That means looking up any legal terms, looking up any names of witnesses or names of anybody that you've heard about in this trial. Please do not go to the locations that you might have heard about in this trial. And please do not discuss this case with anybody at all whatsoever. No exceptions to that. Do any of you have any questions about what I'm asking you to do this weekend? I would suggest to you go home, spend some time with your friends and your family. Do whatever it does that you do to relax, get your mind right, and we will see you bright and early Monday morning at 10 o'clock. All rise for these children. Have a good weekend. Sheriff, y'all may be seated. Please put some things on the record. First of all, Mr. Gill, you and Mr. Snipes approached the side of the bench, and I told you at that time I'd allow you to put certain things on the record. I want to give you an opportunity to do that now. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I'll put on the record what our conversation was at the sidebar, which was that I asked to approach the bench, and you allowed me to, and I objected that the state was going into extraneous conduct, that yesterday you had admitted certain evidence regarding this incident for a limited purpose.
With Mr. D'Antoni.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Mr. Oliver, during his testimony, admitted the conduct when asked by the state of Texas, and we objected that they were going into further extraneous conduct that had been opened up by their own cross-examination of Mr. Oliver, where essentially they were seeking to impeach their own evidence. We objected on that ground, and also objected that they were going to go beyond the scope of what they were allowed to go into yesterday. And my recollection was that both of those objections were overruled.
Mr. Snipes, you had made an offer or a response at the side of the bench. I'll allow you to narrate that for the record if you choose to.
I don't need to.
The objections were overruled, Mr. Gill. I told you also I'd give you a running objection to the entire line of questioning for Mr. Michael D'Antoni. The next thing that's going to happen, so the record's clear about what we are going to do, we're going to let Ms. Wood go. We're going to get off the record. We're going to recess for the rest of the day officially. I'm going to work with the lawyers on the jury charge. I understand that there's been a motion to sequester that's been filed by the defense. Is that still a good motion?
Judge, what we filed was a motion objecting to the jury separating during deliberation.
Sorry about that. Yes, sir. That's absolutely right. Is that still a motion that you stand behind?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then, with that in mind, my arguments on Monday morning, Mr. Snipes?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hermas has urged me to make one thing clear for the record, specifically that the reason we called Mr. D'Antoni was because the defendant told the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that
he said to him that we didn't care about his safety and all we were worried about was convictions. That was the purpose of the testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Mr. Stiles, appreciate that. The jury charge will be, we'll work it out today before y'all go home. And what I'll ask is that on Monday morning, that the lawyers be here at 9 o'clock, ready to go on the record. Whatever rulings that I'm going to make on the jury charge, we'll take up at that time. 10 o'clock, I'll read the charge to the jurors. The state, will you all be making an opening?
Yes, sir.
Apparently Mr. Lewis will.
Jump up real quick.
And then we'll go to the defense. We'll work out the times, and then we'll have the jurors deliberate this case. Is there anything else that we need to put on the record before we recess for today?
We filed a motion last evening. It was accepted for filing this morning, asking that Article 905 of the Penal Code be declared unconstitutional, as applied in this case.
Okay. I'll take that under advisement. Do you have a chance to get that motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sure that'll be something we'll talk about on Monday morning, and I appreciate that. Is there anything else?
Those are the states.
So are you anticipating all objections to the jury charge be taken at one time on Monday morning?
Yes, sir. Starting at 9 o'clock. What I'm hoping is that this charge conference that I'm going to call what we're about to do until you all leave will be off the record. You all can narrate for the record once we get on Monday. I just don't like charge conferences on the record because it's a disaster for the court reporter. So that's how we're going to do this. Okay? Go ahead.
Sometimes I don't like charge conferences that are off the record because they're a disaster for the defense.
I understand. And I want you to know that I will give you every opportunity to narrate for the record any objections that you have to any of my rulings. So we'll do that on Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Is there anything else before we recess this case?
No, sir.
No, sir.
All right, thank you very much. That's all. Court's in recess. Ms. Wood, thank you. Council Wood, did you get your fingers in?